everyone, and welcome back to the Workbench. This is a bit of a different angle than you're used to seeing, but in any case, this is the Workbench. Today I want to talk to you about an article that I recently wrote on the blog, on the website, ontargetreviews.me. If you get a chance, here's a link, go check it out. Anyway, I'm not going to go into detail, and I'm not going to read verbatim what I wrote. You guys can go check it out, but I want to touch on a few key points that I make in the article, and also some that I don't make in the article that come across a little bit better in person or on video. So, the article talks about many different things, but primarily it's about the view of gun control and this state of being that we're in right now in this country, where the media is reporting firearms ownership and gun legislation in a certain way, and then of course you've got the lawmakers of this country who are doing certain things to perpetuate stereotypes and to push an agenda. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First thing, of course, is that the lawmakers are trying to limit, restrict, heavily restrict, or even completely negate the Second Amendment in this country. That's an agenda they are pushing. It's not a secret. It's not something I'm making up. Do your research on it. Listen to what these people who are doing this democratic sit-in, right, at upper levels of government, that's verbatim what they're saying, is they want to outright abolish the Second Amendment. Look it up. It's out there. This is not an opinion. And then you've got folks like this De Leon guy from California who, what a moron. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll put a link to the video over here. Check it out. He's a moron. It's a 48 second video or so. It's the best one that I've seen done. This guy does a great job editing it. Kudos to him for putting it together. Check it out. It's really interesting. When he can go on TV and say certain things that are just completely ridiculous, not only does he get his terminology wrong and all that other stuff, but he looks like a fool and sounds like a fool to people who are in the know, like myself and other members of the firearm community. He just sounds like an idiot. But to other people who might not be members of the firearm community, know anything about guns at all, they have to take him at face value. And that's really what it boils down to. Is I've got a cheat sheet here because I've got many notes, but people who don't know anything about firearms will believe him because of his title and his position within the government. For instance, my sister-in-law, she is a fantastic person, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I would do anything for her. She is family. Unfortunately, she's ignorant in the purest definition of the word. Purest definition of the word. So, what is the definition of ignorant? Well, we refer to Merriam-Webster. The definition of ignorance, or ignorant, is lacking knowledge or information resulting from or showing lack of knowledge. That's all that it is. Ignorance is not a negative term unless it's used in a negative connotation. Ignorance is just a word with a definition. She is ignorant, but not in a negative way. She just doesn't know. So, you've got people who are ignorant believing this guy just because of the office that he holds, really. So they're listening to this guy talk and sound like an idiot, but they're believing everything that he says, which really and truly, nothing what he said was true. Nothing at all. In any case, imposing new restrictions on firearms, ammunition, or accessories is not going to stop the terrible acts of cowardly violence in this country. It's just not. Restricting one means of committing a violent act is not going to eliminate violent acts. Look, you know, there's a phrase, locks keep honest people honest, or to support craftsman who blames his tools. Different phrases like that are around for a reason. Locks keep honest people honest, meaning if you lock a door, somebody who walks up and finds the door locked will move on. A burglar, a criminal, will find a locked door, but will still find a way to get into the house. Even though your door was locked, there might be 6 or 7 locks in that door. They'll still find a way to get in. They'll go to a window, whatever. So, restricting firearm ownership in this country will not negate the acts of terrible violence and cowardice, just true cowardice that we see in this country. All they're going to do is they're going to find another way to commit those acts. They may turn to explosive ordinances, homemade or otherwise. They might turn to seemingly, let's say, non-violent means, such as biological weapons or chemical weapons. If you think about this, what would be more deadly in this country? A sole gunman with a limited supply of ammunition, a limited target range, so to speak, and a single firearm, or somebody with a bacteria that is immune to the antibacterials and medicines that we have available to us. Think of the damage and misery and deaths that a single bacteria from a single individual could cause if released into a water supply or was airborne somehow. Think about that. What's more deadly? One person with one gun, or even multiple firearms, or one person with a bacteria or a chemical weapon of some sort, polluting a water supply or an air supply to an entire area. Think about how big of an impact that could have. You're talking, if you're looking at a major city, let's take any major city, you could be in the upwards of millions of people affected rather than a handful of people affected. Now, don't get me wrong, even just one person affected by a terrible act of tragedy or cowardice is too many. But restricting a gun ownership is not the solution to the problem. The notion that anyone can get any kind of gun as easily as getting a toy and a Happy Meal, I mean, come on, people. If you believe what these ignorant individuals who are on television and other social media outlets talking about, you would think that you could walk into McDonald's, order a Big Mac and fries and a Happy Meal for your kid, but you got to check the Happy Meal because there might be an AR-15 in there. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that buying a gun in this country legally is as easy as opening up your cereal box and finding a toy at the bottom. It's just not that easy. Criminals, again, will find a way to commit these terrible acts with whatever means they have available to them. Are firearms utilized to commit terrible acts? Of course, but so are many other things. And that leads me to another point. Why is it when a terrible act is committed, do we only ever focus on the tool that was used? And I'm using the word tool for a reason, rather than the individual who perpetuated the act. Why are we focusing on the gun that was used and not the person behind the gun, when you might turn around and find a mother who drowns 3 children in a bathtub because she doesn't know how she's going to make the next month's rent payment, so she kills her children, she just goes wacko. They don't consider her hands or the bathtub or the water that was in the bathtub an assault weapon or anything like that. They never talk about that. They only ever talk about the individual committing the act. Whenever it's not a gun, it's about the individual. But whenever it is a gun, it's about the gun itself, which really, really bothers me. And that begs the question, what agenda are they pushing? We could go into hours and hours talking about the reasons why getting a gun very easily is such a bunch of malarkey, but we won't have the time for that on this video. I'm trying to keep it relatively short. 15 minutes is my hope. Anyway, background checks. Background checks are completed at every legal gun purchase, period. Legal gun purchase. Now, private citizen to private citizen do not require background checks in all states, but do in some. So for those of you out there who are thinking, oh, well, you know, you don't need a background check to buy a gun. All you got to do is go on to Arms List and find somebody who's willing to sell it to you. There's another part of that is morality that I'm not even going to bother touching on here. But anytime you buy a firearm legally from a dealer, from a place of business, there are background checks in place. And in most states, you need to, in order to purchase a pistol, which is the most common type of firearm used during a firearms-related act of aggression, handgun versus long gun, you need to be of a certain age to purchase that and have had passed a background check. All of these, by the way, are done by either local law enforcement or the FBI. So to say that these people are finding some loophole and they're not having to go through background checks, it's not always true, and it's less true than what they lead you to believe. Let's see. There's no Amazon for guns. These things just don't show up at your front door. You can't go online and be like, oh, I like this one, click, and 2 days later, because you're a Prime member, it shows up at your front door. That's not how this works. When you buy a gun online, you don't take possession of it until it goes to a dealer. It doesn't go to your house. The gun goes to a dealer. You go to the dealer, you pick it up, you fill out your forms, you get your background checks done if that's, you know, part of that form. If you have a concealed carry license, your background checks have already been done in most states, but they still sometimes do a background check through the FBI. Again, so much that goes into this. They don't show up at your front door. And in some states, you can't even buy ammo and have it shipped to your house, or accessories and have it shipped to your house. Alright, let's see, moving on here. Some will ask, why do you need a gun that holds more than 10 rounds and shoots that fast? This seems to be a common argument, right? So for the people who are very liberal or whatever, they might look at you and go, why do you need a gun that holds so many rounds? Well, my question back to them is always, why do you need a vehicle that is able to operate at speeds faster than 55 miles an hour? My right to own a firearm is protected by the Constitution of this United States. Your right to own a vehicle is not a right. It's a privilege. At any point in time, the government can come down with restrictions. They can limit how fast it goes, where you can drive it, what type of vehicle you can drive, what kind of fuel it runs on. The list goes on and on and on and on. They can limit what times of day you drive. All of that stuff. And you have no way of fighting it. Versus in a situation where they might try to limit or abolish the Second Amendment, it's a constitutional right. A constitutional, inalienable right. Not vehicles. Vehicles aren't. So again, why do I need a gun that holds more than 10 rounds and shoots really fast? Because it's kind of fun. I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of fun. And also, from a self-defense situation or self-defense standpoint, if I have more than one criminal, more than one perpetrator attempting to do me or someone else or whatever harm, I don't want to be limited within a certain parameter just because somebody somewhere thought less violent crime would be committed should we limit something. Same reason you drive a car faster than 55. It's fun. There are people who do it competitively, same thing with shooting. And sometimes you just want to go out and have fun and go fast. There's no difference. It's the same logic that applies to both. Whether you want to believe it or not, it's the same logic that applies. A weapon. Alright, here's the other part that really drives me nuts. People talk about weapons. What is a weapon? So let's refer back to Merriam-Webster, right? What is a weapon? A weapon is defined as something that is used for fighting or attacking someone or for defending yourself when someone is attacking you. Also, something that is used to win a contest or achieve something. So by that definition, look it up. I'm not making this stuff up. Go do your own research. That's the other thing. I encourage you all to do your own research on this. Just don't take my word for face value. I'm not De Leon. I know a little bit more than he does about guns, but do your own research on this. By definition, that means literally anything can be a weapon. If I turn around here and I grab this paperclip, if I stab you in the eye with this paperclip, this becomes a weapon. This here is no different than any firearm out there. Until it is used to perpetuate an act of violence, to commit a crime, to hurt somebody, it is just a tool. Until it perpetuates an act of crime by an individual, then it becomes a weapon. So to stand there and say, oh, well, what about these weapons on the market? You can go out and buy a weapon. Well, technically, your phone can be a weapon. If you really want to get nitpicky, your brain can be a weapon. If you convince somebody during the course of an argument that you are correct and they are incorrect, by definition, to win a contest or achieve something, by definition, your brain is a weapon. So quit calling them weapons. They're tools, they're guns, they're firearms, whatever you want to call it, but it's not a weapon until it's used to commit an act of crime or to hurt someone. God, it drives me nuts. To call something an inanimate object a weapon just because it resembles something that one person used to harm someone at some point in history is asinine. If that was the case, then all Cadillacs are weapons, because at some point in time, some old person in Florida slipped their foot off the brake and hit the gas because they were confused and they ran over a bunch of people on a sidewalk, hurting them or killing them. Therefore, all Cadillacs are weapons of mass destruction. Same logic. If you want to call guns weapons, then you need to call all cars weapons. All cars weapons, because there are vehicular deaths every day in this country. Every day. All cars are weapons if all guns are weapons. Whenever they go to breaking footage, right? So let's say something's happening in the world and the media is showing you something on television. It's never raw. Please, people, understand that. What you're seeing is not raw footage of something. It's gone through the editing process. There's a reason they can put it up on the screen. It's been looked at, viewed by someone else, edited for content time, whatever they deem to be inappropriate to show on television. And I'm not talking from a conspiracy theorist point of view here, like, oh, they only show you what they want you to see. There is some of that, absolutely. But nothing of what you're seeing is purely raw footage. Nothing. It's all been vetted somewhere along the line. Everything that's reported or said by any government official on any side of the fence, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, whatever, has been carefully calculated to promote their agenda, whether it be a personal agenda, a political agenda, a professional agenda. Everything that they say, these people are not stupid. These people are some of the smartest people in our country. You can say whatever you want, but there's no argument that holds any water against it. Now, De Leon, he's not very intelligent when it comes to firearms, but he's a smart person because he was able to get into the position that he is today. I'm not saying they're common sense smart across the board. What I'm saying is they are inherently intelligent individuals because of the schooling that they've been able to receive or whatever. They're smart people. They're not stupid. So everything that they say, it's been carefully calculated to promote their agenda, until you get some wackadoo on television who actually gets asked a question that is on the minds of the Americans as a whole, or a certain group of people, and they don't know the answer to it, and then they just make something up and they sound stupid. That does happen. But anyway, my other beef with the media is this experts thing, right? So today, President just spoke at the memorial service for the fallen Dallas police officers. I'm not even going to touch on his speech. I actually thought it was very well done to a certain point. I think the last 10 minutes of his speech, 10-15 minutes, he started to promote his agenda, and that bothers me. You don't use a memorial service as a platform to put an agenda on, whether it be professional, political, or social, or professional, whatever. You just don't do that. You don't use a memorial service to promote an agenda. Come on. Anybody. That's just stupid. But anyway, again, the speech was pretty good. But before the speech, Colion Noir, Fox News, the first time I personally can remember them bringing in an expert. He's a lawyer. He's a commentator for the NRA. He is, in my opinion, an expert. He knows the laws for the most part, and especially in this area. He knows the laws. He understands firearm ownership. I mean, heck, ultimately the NRA pays him something, so he knows what he's talking about. The first time I've ever seen an expert, a true firearms expert, brought in to defend a conversation, right? To defend the Second Amendment right during a conversation intelligently. There are some people out there who are just unintelligent and get flustered when they get asked questions, whatever, and that makes the rest of us kind of look bad. Thank you, Colion, for being the best voice of reason that we have, that I know of, and for doing your part to bolster this country and to protect our Second Amendment rights. So thank you. He was on there. It was great. But prior to him on there on Fox News this morning, I cannot remember the last time they had a true expert. Now, mind you, I can remember plenty of times where they've had some idiot on television, Republican, Democrat, whoever, talking about how dangerous guns are and how a barrel shroud is a thing against a shoulder that goes up. Come on. Like, these people are out there. We need more experts like Colion to be reached out to by the members of national mainstream media. Don't just have your person on there because it promotes what you're doing. If you really cared, you would have an objective look at an argument before you make a decision, before you draw a conclusion, before you formulate an opinion. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen because, again, they're promoting an agenda. So let's talk a little bit more about the media, and let's talk about this jerk who wrote this article regarding his harrowing ordeal shooting an AR-15 for the first time. Gentleman from New York, and also, I will say, I never use the names of the people who perpetuate these commit these acts of terror. The Boston bombers, the person in Charleston, the guy in Dallas. I refuse to use their names. I refuse to learn their names because ultimately, what are they doing it for? They're doing it for the notoriety, and unfortunately, the media outlets, whether they know it or not, and they do because they're smart people, they're creating an environment where if you want 15 minutes of fame, all you have to do is go out and kill a bunch of people, and we're going to put your name on the news. There's your 15 minutes of fame. That's terrible. You should not be promoting that. When things like this happen, nobody should ever know their name. Do not let them get the notoriety that they so desperately desire. Don't do it. It will significantly, in my opinion, significantly decrease the number of acts that are committed, the acts of violence that are committed in this country. Is it going to solve everything? Heck no. But by giving them their 15 minutes, then some other wackadoo somewhere else in the country is like, hey, he got his 15 minutes. This is all I have to do? Cool, I'll go out and do it. Don't do that. I never use her name. So anyway, this columnist from New York, he goes out, shoots a gun, says he has PTSD now. The balls in this man to say what he said. But again, he was promoting his agenda. He was promoting himself. He was promoting the paper that he writes for. He was promoting a viewpoint on firearms, a way people look at firearms, again, from an ignorant standpoint. If you don't know anything about it, Connecticut, New York, think about where this guy is. He's in an area with some of the toughest gun legislation in this country. And he writes this thing, and people who read his articles regularly believe him. They trust him. They have no other reason not to trust him because they don't know any different. So he writes this article and says, God, it was terrible, it was horrible, it might hurt my shoulder, and I couldn't do all this stuff. People are going to believe him. And he knows that. He also knows it's going to stir up controversy, which ultimately gets his name in the news. It's this never-ending vicious cycle. It repeats itself over and over again. People like that, they utilize and abuse the position that they've been given. And I'm not saying that nothing merits why he got the role that he got. I'm sure he's a great writer. Unfortunately, he's promoting an agenda, and that agenda is a very liberal, gun control, guns are bad, read my paper, read my articles agenda. That's really what it boils down to, in my opinion. And if you're not asking yourself those questions as to why is he writing this and why is he now writing a follow-up story, then you're part of the problem. And not, again, not in a negative way, just educate yourself. Don't take his word, read that one article, and think that that's how everything is. There's a reason why that is a firearm that is utilized by millions of people worldwide, not just in America, worldwide. It's a platform that is utilized by millions. If it were as bad as he led his viewership and readership to believe, then why is it millions of people are still using that? Whatever. Automatic weapons. Jesus. Okay, automatic weapons. When media or politicians or whomever, activists, whatever you want to call them, use the term automatic weapons, it really, to use a Family Guy term, it really grinds my gears. It drives me crazy because ultimately what they're doing is they're intentionally using verbiage, right? So adjectives and nouns to paint this mental image of what a firearm is. It's an assault weapon, an automatic assault weapon. If you actually knew what assault weapon really means, 99.9% of the time, an automatic weapon, as promoted or stated by the media, automatic weapon is nothing more than a semi-automatic firearm. Again, weapon, it's not a weapon until it's used to commit a crime or hurt someone. And automatic, are there automatic weapons out there? So let's get into that. Are automatic firearms manufactured today? Yes, absolutely. They're available to military, certain law enforcement agencies, and government agencies. Beyond that, nobody can get an automatic firearm manufactured today. Can a private citizen buy an automatic firearm? Yes, they can. However, it cannot have been mechanically altered or manufactured post-1986. It has to be 1986 or prior. And you can thank the Firearms Owners Protection Act, I believe is what it was called, Firearms Owners of 1986, which, by the way, was a bill introduced by a Republican and signed into law by a Republican president. So for all the Democrats who think that Republicans are so gung-ho and Second Amendment and anti-everything, this was a law that really pissed gun owners off at the time, but ultimately was introduced and signed into law by Republicans. Can't you just manipulate a firearm manufactured today to be automatic? Well, not unless you want to go to jail for a really long time. It is illegal to alter, for a private citizen, to alter in any way a firearm to make it a fully automatic firearm. Completely illegal. You go to jail for a long, long time if that happens. Additionally, private citizen, can you buy an automatic firearm? Yes, you can buy an automatic firearm so long as, again, it was manufactured pre-1986 and hasn't been altered since. However, those are incredibly expensive. Even ones that look like hell are very expensive. So for people to say, oh, well, anybody can get their hands on an automatic weapon. No, this is not something that the mainstream gun shooter guy can afford, or gal. You need to be fairly well off or invest very heavily in order to be able to obtain an automatic firearm, a fully automatic firearm. Don't forget there's a difference between automatic and semi-automatic. Automatic means you pull the trigger and the gun goes bang and keeps going bang multiple times until you let go or until it runs out of ammunition. Semi-automatic is for every pull the trigger, the gun goes bang once. That's it. Bang. And then you got to let it go and pull it again. Bang. Can you do this really fast? Yeah. Can it make it sound automatic? Depending on how fast you are. Just look at paintball. My gosh, some of the guys who shoot paintball, forget about it. You would think they had fully automatics, and 2 of them sometimes. But anyway, don't use the term automatic weapons when really what that means is semi-automatic firearms. There's a difference. But it's all about verbiage. So again, we go back to that. The media specifically uses tone and diction and verbiage and all this stuff to paint a mental picture, which ultimately promotes an agenda that they're trying to get across. It promotes their agenda, whether it be creating controversy, which then increases viewership and gets their ratings up, and makes them more popular and earns their network more money. Great. I mean, it's capitalism at its best, I suppose, right? The one thing that's usually left out is the intelligent presentation of factual information. So what does that mean? That means these wackadoos are spouting off at the mouth with just a bunch of crap. Ultimately, it's verbal diarrhea. They don't necessarily know anything that they're talking about. They haven't researched anything. They heard somebody say it somewhere once before. Therefore, it's got to be accurate. It's got to be news presented. There is very little research done on any national news program as it relates to firearms and firearm ownership. Unfortunately, it also bleeds over into other stuff, but we're not even going to touch on that. So, you know, again, I encourage everyone to do their own research. Don't take my word for it. Don't take somebody else's word for it, regardless of what title they hold or where they are in a hierarchy of management or anything like that. Regardless, firearm ownership, what car to buy, anything. Don't take somebody's word for it. Go out and do the research yourself, because ultimately you're going to make a better informed decision, even if it's the same decision as you would have made given the information that was presented to you by somebody. Even if it's the same decision, you'll feel better about it, and you'll know that it's the right one, versus just believing it's the right one. Go out and do your own research on it. I'll end with this, and I'm actually going to read this, because this is the last portion of my article, and it makes sense, so just bear with me. Whenever you engage in conversation with someone who is anti-firearms, ask them why. Make them articulate a response to you as to why they are opposed to whatever it is they're opposed to. It doesn't have to even be firearms, but in this instance I'm using that as an example. So make them explain why they are opposed to firearm ownership or guns in general or certain types of guns. And often, just by doing this, you'll find that they have been led to believe inaccuracies from years of politicians and celebrities jamming their fallacies down their throats and using tragic events as stepping stones to climb to the top of their soapbox and promote their personal agenda, which should be a crime in and of itself. Take the time to politely educate them on what it takes to buy a gun in your respective state, what it takes to become licensed to carry one legally, and the taxes and upcharges that are associated with firearms, ammunition, and accessories. The key, though, and this is the big part, the key, though, is to never lose your cool during the discussion. Why? 2 reasons. First, people will listen to you and trust what you're saying to be true if presented in the same manner as the lie-breathing politicians. So think about this. You've got this guy who stands up on national television and uses the wrong terms, the wrong verbiage, he has no idea what he's talking about, he's just spouting off lies. But he presented it in a manner that, if you knew nothing about it, he seemed to know what he was talking about. He was confident in what he said, and he said it and he presented it fairly well. I think he stumbled all over himself because I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. But again, somebody who didn't know would look at him and go, oh, well, he's presenting it fairly well and he's confident. I believe him. If you do the same thing, people are going to believe you. And second, nothing pisses off an anti-gunner more than someone who likes guns, owns them legally, shoots them often, carries them everywhere, who knows the facts, who can't be rattled, and who maintains a smile on their face. So I guess I'm saying kill them with kindness and facts. And really, ultimately, that's what it boils down to. So if you're ever presented with a situation, whether it be you're brought into an argument or you inject yourself into a conversation or whatever, understand that in that instance, in that area, that conversation, that household or business place or whatever it is, you are the face of guns. You are the face of firearm ownership. You are the face of what these people now believe to be the majority of gun owners. If you present yourself in a confident, calm manner, people are going to find it tough to argue with you, especially if you provide them with factual information that you can back up with documentation. Smile, be calm, present your information, be factual about it. As soon as you lose your cool, as soon as you freak out, start raising your voice, start talking fast or making shit up, they're going to know it, man. It's going to show. Don't do it. Kill them with kindness. They hate it when you can speak intelligently on a subject matter and be factual about it. They can't argue with anything, any point that you're making. As long as you're presenting it right, you're using the facts, and it's an intelligent argument, they can't argue with it. So read the article on targetreviews.me. I'll put a link to it over here. Check it out. Read the article. Check it out. Let me know what you think. You can comment there. Of course, you can comment on this video here. But in any case, thank you all for watching, for supporting me and this channel and this brand that I've created. It's been a great ride, and I'm looking forward to it continuing. But let me know what you think, and thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you again very soon.